For 20 years, he moved silently through the corporate offices, pushing his mop bucket, wiping floors, and emptying trash bins. Employees barely glanced at him, some even stepping over freshly mopped tiles without a word of thanks. He never complained, never argued, just kept working. Little did they know, this seemingly invisible janitor held the ultimate power over their careers. His name was James Carter, and he wasn't just the help. He was the owner. The disrespect he endured daily only fueled his quiet determination. While executives flaunted their authority, James observed everything. Their laziness, their arrogance, their unethical behavior. James had inherited the company from his father, but chose to remain anonymous. He believed true leadership meant understanding every level of the business. So he took on the role of a janitor, working under a fake identity. His lawyers and a trusted few knew the truth, but to everyone else, he was just James the cleaner. The disguise wasn't just about observation, it was a test. He wanted to see who would treat even the lowest-ranking employee with dignity. Over the years, he compiled a mental list of those who failed. Some employees were indifferent, but others were outright cruel. A manager named Brad consistently threw trash on the floor just as James finished cleaning, laughing with his colleagues. HR Director Lisa ignored multiple complaints about workplace harassment, dismissing them as janitor drama. James absorbed it all, his expression unreadable. But behind the scenes, he was building a case. Security footage, emails, witness statements, everything was documented. The final straw came when a group of employees mocked him openly at the company holiday party. That night, James made his decision. It started as an ordinary Monday. Employees arrived, grabbing coffee, ignoring James as usual. Then, an all-staff email summoned everyone to the conference room. Confused whispers filled the air as James entered, not in his janitor uniform, but in a tailored suit. The CEO stood beside him, announcing, effective immediately, "Mr. Carter is assuming full control." The room erupted in shock. Brad's face turned pale. Lisa's hands trembled. James finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Some of you have forgotten that respect isn't earned by title. It's earned by character. Today, you'll learn that lesson." One by one, James called out the worst offenders. Brad was fired on the spot for workplace bullying. Lisa was let go for negligence. Several others were suspended pending investigation. The remaining employees sat in stunned silence. James wasn't done. He announced sweeping policy changes, mandatory sensitivity training, anonymous reporting systems, and a new promotion structure based on merit, not favoritism. For those who had shown him kindness over the years, surprise bonuses and promotions. The message was clear: integrity mattered more than rank. The news spread like wildfire. Employees who had barely acknowledged James now whispered in hushed tones, terrified they might be next. Some tried to backtrack, offering awkward apologies or sudden kindness, but it was too late. James had seen their true colors. Meanwhile, those who had always treated him with respect were rewarded, not just financially, but with greater responsibilities. The office dynamic shifted overnight. The culture of arrogance and entitlement crumbled, replaced by a cautious awareness that anyone, at any level, could be watching. James's quiet observation had exposed the company's toxic underbelly, and now, accountability was unavoidable. Within hours, the story leaked to the press. News outlets picked it up with sensational headlines. Asterisk, janitor reveals he's the boss, fires rude employees. Asterisk, social media exploded with reactions, some cheering James as a hero, others accusing him of deception. Talk shows debated whether his methods were justified. Business analysts praised his hands-on leadership style, while critics argued he had taken manipulation too far. James, however, refused most interviews. His only public statement? Asterisk, respect costs nothing. Those who forgot that have no place in my company. Asterisk, the world was captivated by this real-life undercover boss tale with a twist of revenge. For those fired, the humiliation was unbearable. Brad, once a cocky middle manager, struggled to explain the gap in his resume. Lisa, the dismissive HR director, found herself blacklisted by other firms after word spread about her negligence. Some tried to sue, claiming wrongful termination, but James's meticulous records made their cases flimsy. Meanwhile, former colleagues who had participated in the mistreatment distanced themselves, rewriting history to claim they had always been kind to James. But security footage and emails didn't lie. Their reputations were permanently tarnished. Not everyone had failed James's test. Maria, a junior accountant, had always greeted him with a smile and even brought him coffee on cold mornings. She was promoted to a senior role. David, a security guard who had stood up for James when others mocked him, was given a raise and a leadership position. These employees became the new backbone of the company, proof that kindness and professionalism were valued. James made it clear, loyalty wasn't about blind obedience, but basic human decency. Those who had shown it were now reaping the benefits. What drove a wealthy business owner to live as a janitor for 2 decades? Psychologists analyzing the story suggested it was a mix of strategic leadership and personal vindication. James had wanted to see his company from the ground up, free from the distortions of power. But there was also an element of justice. He had known discrimination in his youth and wanted to expose it in its rawest form. His patience wasn't just about gathering evidence. It was about proving that true character reveals itself when people think no one is watching. In the end, his experiment delivered a brutal but necessary lesson. Several terminated employees attempted legal action, alleging emotional distress and defamation. However, James's legal team was prepared. Years of documented incidents, recorded slurs, witness testimonies, even text messages between employees bragging about their behavior, made their cases nearly unwinnable. A few settled quietly with NDAs, but most faded into obscurity. Employment lawyers cited this as a landmark case for workplace ethics, proving that systemic disrespect could have real consequences. Companies nationwide began reevaluating their own cultures, fearing they might have a James in their midst. CEOs and business leaders were divided. Some admired James's dedication to understanding his workforce, while others called it an extreme breach of trust. Forbes published an op-ed titled Leadership or Revenge? The thin line between justice and cruelty. Meanwhile, diversity and inclusion consultants used the story in training sessions, asking executives, if you worked in disguise, what would your employees really say about you? The tale became a cautionary legend in MBA programs, a reminder that power should never equate to arrogance. At his first all-hands meeting as the revealed owner, James didn't gloat. Instead, he spoke about values. This company was built on hard work and respect. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. No more. He announced profit-sharing initiatives, stricter anti-discrimination policies, and an open-door policy for complaints. The employees listened in silence, some with guilt, others with hope. For the first time in years, the company felt like it had a soul. James ended with a simple statement. From now on, we do better, because everyone here deserves dignity. News of James's purge sent shockwaves beyond his own company. Rival firms quietly conducted internal audits, worried about similar revelations. Some instituted anonymous feedback systems, others mandated sensitivity training. A few high-profile executives were even ousted after employees, emboldened by James's story, came forward with their own allegations. The business world had been put on notice. Toxic workplaces wouldn't just hurt morale, they could destroy careers. Ethicists clashed over whether James had crossed a line. Was it fair to judge people based on behavior they thought was hidden? Or was this the ultimate accountability test? Supporters argued that systemic discrimination often thrives in secrecy, and his approach exposed it perfectly. Critics countered that he had manipulated his employees, creating a gotcha moment rather than fostering real change. James's response: if basic decency requires supervision, then supervision is what I'll provide. Not everyone waited to be fired. A handful of mid-level managers, realizing their past behavior put them at risk, resigned immediately. Rumors swirled that they had been part of private chats mocking James, though no evidence surfaced. Their departures created temporary instability, but James saw it as a natural purge. A company that tolerates cruelty isn't one I want to run, he said. Within months, new hires, vetted for both skill and character, filled the gaps. Surprisingly, some online communities rallied behind the terminated employees, framing them as victims of an elaborate trap. Petitions circulated, demanding their reinstatement. But these efforts fizzled when anonymous coworkers began sharing stories of their misconduct. One viral post read, "James didn't ruin their lives. They did that themselves the moment they decided respect was optional." The court of public opinion had ruled. Karma was justified. Years later, business schools taught James's story as a case study in ethical leadership. His company thrived, with employee satisfaction at an all-time high. Turnover plummeted, innovation soared. James himself remained a mysterious figure, rarely giving interviews but occasionally appearing unannounced in different departments. Never in disguise again, but always watching. His most famous quote became a company mantra. If you wouldn't say it to the janitor, you shouldn't say it at all. Few considered the emotional weight James carried. For 20 years, he had swallowed insults, bottled up frustration, and played a role. In a rare candid moment, he admitted to a journalist, "Some days, I wondered if it was worth it. But then I'd see someone spit on the floor I just cleaned, and I knew. This had to be exposed." His experiment had come at a personal cost, but he had no regrets. After the reveal, several employees who had witnessed the mistreatment but stayed silent out of fear finally spoke up. They provided additional evidence, recordings, emails, and even journal entries, detailing the toxic environment. James didn't punish these bystanders. Instead, he commended their courage in coming forward. "Silence enables abuse," he said. But redemption starts with honesty. This encouraged a wave of transparency across the company, with more employees feeling safe to report misconduct without retaliation. Not everyone in power was thrilled with James's methods. Some board members argued that publicly humiliating employees was bad for business. They worried about lawsuits, bad press, and investor reactions. James stood firm. "This company was rotting from within." He countered. "Would you rather I let it collapse quietly?" After reviewing the evidence, even the most skeptical directors had to admit, the purge, while brutal, was necessary. Within months, profits rose as productivity and morale improved, proof that ethical leadership was good for the bottom line. Gone were the days of hiring based solely on Ivy League degrees or nepotism. James implemented a revolutionary hiring process that included anonymous peer reviews, situational ethics tests, and even shadowing in lower-level roles before promotions. One question became infamous in interviews. How would you treat someone you believe can't advance your career? Those who hesitated were disqualified immediately. The result? A workforce built on humility and mutual respect. Not every offender was fired. A few, recognizing their mistakes, begged for a second chance. James granted it, under strict conditions. They had to undergo sensitivity training, perform community service, and start in entry-level roles again. Some couldn't handle the demotion and quit. Others embraced the humility, working their way back up with newfound empathy. One former manager, now a team lead, later admitted, I thought I was better than him. Turns out, I wasn't even close. As the story went viral, skeptics questioned its legitimacy. No one would do this for 20 years. They argued. Blogs speculated that James was a corporate spy or that the whole thing was a PR stunt. Investigative journalists dug into his past, only to confirm everything. His father's will, property records, and decades of tax filings proved his ownership. The truth was stranger than fiction, and the conspiracy theories only added to the legend. Janitors and other companies reported sudden, awkward kindness from coworkers. Memes circulated. What if our janitor is the CEO? Some cleaners joked about wearing fake rings or, accidentally, dropping legal documents. But beyond the humor, there was a real shift. Maintenance staff were invited to meetings, included in team lunches, and finally given proper break rooms. James's story had unintentionally sparked a movement for dignity in blue-collar work. A major streaming platform released a docuseries titled The Janitor Who Owned the Company, featuring interviews with fired employees, loyal staff, and business experts. The most chilling moment? Security footage of executives laughing as they stepped over James's freshly mopped floor. The documentary won awards, but its real impact was forcing corporations to audit their own cultures. HR departments worldwide scrambled to update policies. One of the few executives who had always treated James kindly was CFO Daniel Wright. After the reveal, the two became close friends. Daniel admitted he'd suspected James's secret but never outed him. "I figured if a man wants to mop floors in silence, that's his right," he joked. Their friendship became symbolic, proof that respect, even in ignorance, was always rewarded. Internet comedians had a field day. Fake undercover boss skits went viral. One tweet read, "Day 3 as a toilet cleaner. So far, 3 people have told me I'm worthless. Can't wait for the board meeting next week." Even James laughed, retweeting the best ones with the comment, "Humor is how we heal. But also, check your biases." Universities launched studies on power blindness, the phenomenon where people act cruelly when they believe they're untouchable. Papers were published, citing James's experiment as the ultimate case study. The consensus? Humans are far more likely to behave ethically when they believe they're being watched. Some argued this was cynical. Others called it a wake-up call for accountability. A few terminated employees tried rebranding themselves as humbled leaders, giving LinkedIn lectures on workplace respect. It backfired. The internet never forgets, and screenshots of their past behavior resurfaced. One particularly tone-deaf post, "How being fired taught me kindness," was ratioed into oblivion. The public's verdict was clear. True change requires genuine remorse, not just damage control. After the scandal, the company attracted clients who valued ethical partnerships. A major tech firm switched contracts, stating, "We want to work with people who take integrity this seriously." Even competitors sent private commendations, admitting they envied James's courage. The business grew not despite the controversy, but because of it. In a rare introspective interview, James confessed the experiment had changed him too. "I thought I was just exposing them," he said. But I was also testing my own ability to endure. I learned patience isn't passive, it's power under control. He admitted there were moments he nearly quit, but the bigger mission kept him going. The story influenced more than just corporate culture. Schools began teaching it as a lesson on empathy. A church sermon even used it as a parable. See Christ in the Janitor. Parents told their kids, "Be kind to everyone. You never know who's watching." James's actions had become a societal mirror. Reporters discovered James had been anonymously funding scholarships for janitors' children for years. When asked why he kept it secret, he shrugged. Because it wasn't about me. The revelation silenced even his harshest critics. A handful of employees were genuinely shocked, not by James's identity, but by their co-workers' behavior. "I had no idea this was happening," one said tearfully. James reassured them, "Ignorance isn't guilt. But now that you know, what will you do?" It became a company-wide motto for accountability. Comedians created fake, "How not to get fired by your janitor CEO" training modules. The advice included gems like, "Pro tip. If you wouldn't throw trash at your mother, maybe don't throw it at the guy holding the mop." HR departments actually started using them as icebreakers in real trainings. Years later, James's company had the lowest turnover rate in its industry. Exit interviews consistently cited a culture of respect as the reason employees stayed. His unorthodox method had created something rare, a workplace where people felt valued at every level. When pressed, James admitted one regret. "I wish I'd intervened sooner for the good employees who suffered alongside me." But he also acknowledged, maybe they needed to see the consequences of silence too. At the company's first annual gala after the revelation, James delivered an address that would be quoted for years to come. Standing before hundreds of employees, he spoke without notes. "For 2 decades, I saw this company through a lens few executives ever experience. I saw the quiet heroism of our night shift, the unspoken stress of single parents working 2 jobs, and yes, the casual cruelty that festers when people forget we're all human." The room was utterly silent as he concluded, "This isn't just about cleaning floors anymore. It's about cleaning up how we treat each other." The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes, a company record. In a twist nobody predicted, the company's blue-collar workers, inspired by James's actions, began quietly organizing. Rather than oppose it, James facilitated meetings between union representatives and management. If my experiment proved anything, he told skeptical executives, it's that every voice deserves to be heard. Within 6 months, they established one of the most worker-friendly contracts in the industry, with profit sharing, guaranteed breaks, and transparent promotion tracks, all while maintaining record productivity. James instituted a radical new policy. Every new manager, before assuming their role, had to spend 1 week performing every entry-level job in their department, from janitorial work to mailroom duties. Dubbed Shadow Day, it became the company's most valuable and feared training tool. One future VP famously quit after 2 days, saying, "I can't lead people doing work I don't respect." James considered that a success. It was better they left early than poison the culture later. After the media storm, James received over 3,000 letters from workers worldwide, many anonymous, all heartfelt. A factory worker in Detroit wrote, "I showed your story to my foreman. He hasn't called me boy since." A retail employee in London confessed, "I've been stealing snacks for the cleaning crew ever since I read about you." James had these letters compiled into an unbound book titled, The Silent Majority Speaks, leaving a blank section at the end for future stories. He kept it in the lobby, where anyone could read it, or add to it. In a vulnerable moment with his biographer, James revealed the personal cost. His wife had begged him to stop the charade years earlier, worried about his mental health. His children didn't understand why Dad came home smelling of bleach. "I missed birthdays pretending to be someone else," he admitted. That's time I'll never get back. This revelation added nuance to the legend. Heroism always comes with sacrifice, even when the cause is just. One persistent rumor held truth. Early in his janitorial tenure, James had discovered an actual corporate spy, a competitor's plant posing as an accountant. Rather than expose him immediately, James, still in disguise, subtly fed him false information for months, allowing lawyers to build an airtight case. When confronted, the spy assumed the janitor was a fellow plant. His recorded confession, "Wait, you're the owner," became legendary in corporate security circles. A controversial artist recreated James' janitor closet as a museum exhibit, complete with hidden cameras showing gallery visitors behaving differently when they thought no one was watching. Some praised it as brilliant social commentary. Others called it voyeuristic. James, when asked his opinion, said simply, "Art should make people uncomfortable, just like growth does." The installation later won a prestigious award, ensuring the story's place in cultural history. Among the fired, one story stood out. Mark T., a former sales director who became a high school custodian voluntarily. "I needed to understand what I'd mocked," he told a local paper. Years later, James quietly hired him back, not in sales, but to lead the company's new ethics training program. When asked why, James said, "Redemption isn't about punishment. It's about proving change is possible." Mark's first training slide? A photo of his old janitorial badge next to his new one. Post-purge, the company saw a 40% increase in applications from older workers, veterans, and former blue-collar employees, groups traditionally overlooked in corporate hiring. James made diversity more than a buzzword. He mandated that interview panels always include at least one non-manager. The result? A workforce where 30% of new hires came from service industry backgrounds, people who truly understood every level of the business. A decade later, the company's headquarters featured an unusual monument, a polished bronze mop bucket atop a marble pedestal, engraved with 3 words, "C. Listen, respect." New employees received a miniature replica on their first day. Business schools taught the janitor CEO model as required curriculum. Most remarkably, Webster's dictionary added a new secondary definition for janitor. One who cleanses systemic dysfunction. And James? He still occasionally walked the floors at night, not to test anyone, but to remind himself where real change begins. Rumors swirled for years before a major studio announced a film based on James's story, with an Oscar-winning actor attached to play him. The twist? James refused any payment, insisting the budget instead fund scholarships for custodial workers' children. The film's climactic boardroom scene, where the janitor reveals his identity, was shot in the actual company headquarters, with real employees as extras. Critics praised its unflinching portrayal of workplace dynamics, though some questioned if art could ever capture the full weight of 20 years' patience. James's only comment at the premiere, asterisk, if this makes one executive think twice before snapping at their cleaning staff, it was worth it. When the company began developing workplace monitoring AI, activists raised concerns. James responded by open sourcing the algorithm and appointing an ethics review panel comprising former janitors, fired employees, and HR specialists. The resulting system flagged not just productivity lapses, but patterns of disrespect, like consistently ignoring certain colleagues in meetings. Detractors called it Orwellian. Supporters hailed it as the first asterisk empathy algorithm. Asterisk James's stance was characteristically pragmatic. Asterisk, technology doesn't create culture. People do. This just holds up a mirror. New executives were paired not with senior leaders, but with entry-level employees for monthly reverse mentorship sessions. A viral photo showed the CFO taking notes as a 22-year-old mailroom clerk explained how budget cuts affected her work. Other companies adopted the practice, but few matched James's rule. Asterisk, the mentor sets the agenda. The executive listens. No interruptions. Asterisk within 2 years, 80% of promoted managers cited these sessions as their most valuable training. At his retirement ceremony, James left them with one story. Asterisk, years ago, a VP asked why I didn't just fire the toxic people immediately. I said, because you needed to see what unchecked disrespect looks like. And they needed to see themselves. Asterisk, his parting gift to every employee was a simple brass keychain engraved with 2 words. Asterisk, notice everything. Asterisk, as the standing ovation faded, someone noticed the original mop bucket from his janitor days placed ceremonially beside the CEO's chair, a permanent reminder that true leadership cleans up its own messes.